So what if everything you were taught about money by your very well-meaning, hardworking parents was just wrong? Today, we're going to dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that asks that exact question and pulls back the curtain on the financial lessons that really separate the wealthy from everyone else. You see, the author, Robert Kiyosaki, he had two very powerful father figures in his life, and their core beliefs about money, well, they were complete polar opposites. One of them taught him that the love of money was the root of all evil, but the other one, he insisted that the lack of money was the root of all evil. Can you imagine being a kid trying to figure that one out? His poor dad was actually his biological father, a brilliant guy, a PhD, who, for all his education, always struggled with money. Then there was Rich Dad, who was his best friend's father. This guy was an 8th grade dropout who ended up becoming one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. The huge difference between them, it wasn't just what was in their bank accounts. It was all about how they thought. And this simple phrase right here says it all. It reveals a massive difference in their mindsets. When you say, "I can't afford it," well, that's a statement. It just shuts your brain down. It's a total dead end. But asking, "How can I afford it?" Now that's a question. That's a starting line. It kicks your brain into gear and forces it to start looking for solutions and new possibilities. And these different ways of thinking led to totally different advice on, well, everything. Poor Dad's advice was find a good company to work for, but Rich Dad's was find a good company to buy. Poor Dad would say, play it safe, don't take risks. Rich Dad said, no, learn to manage risk. And here's the big one. Poor Dad believed their family home was their greatest asset. Rich Dad, he insisted it was a liability. So, this was the big turning point. At just 9 years old, Kiyosaki made a choice. He decided to follow the path less traveled and listen to the man who was actually building wealth, not the one with all the fancy degrees. And you know what? That single choice led him to his very first and probably most important lesson about money. Okay, so Rich Dad's way of teaching, it wasn't about sitting in a classroom listening to lectures. Oh no, it was all about real, hard-won experience. His first little course was basically designed to be a simulation of real life, and it started with a job offer that felt a lot more like exploitation than it did education. So he hired the 9-year-old Kiyosaki to dust canned goods in his shop for, get this, a measly 10 cents an hour. After a few weeks of this super boring work, feeling totally underpaid, Kiyosaki gets fed up, he gets angry, and he quits. And this was exactly what Rich Dad was waiting for. The real lesson only began when he made his next offer. Come back to work, but this time you're working for nothing. What was the goal here? It was to completely shatter that mental link between doing work and getting a paycheck. By working for free, Kiyosaki was forced to stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an owner, to look for opportunities to make money, not just earn it. See, the lesson wasn't about the wage at all. It was about learning how to escape the trap that most people spend their entire lives caught in. And yeah, this trap, it actually has a name. It's a cycle that keeps millions and millions of people financially stuck, and it doesn't matter how hard they work or how much money they make. Rich Dad called it the rat race. You know the pattern. Get up, go to work, pay the bills, and then do it all over again. It's this endless loop of working for money just to pay for your life, which, of course, forces you to keep working. And he taught that this whole cycle is powered by two very strong, very human emotions. First up is fear. The fear of not being able to pay your bills. That's what drives you to get a job in the first place. But then, as soon as that paycheck hits your bank account, greed, or, desire, takes over. You start thinking about all the cool stuff you can buy. It's this 1-2 punch that just keeps you running on that hamster wheel. And this is the crucial part. This is why just getting a pay raise almost never solves the problem. For most people, what happens? More income just leads to more spending. You get a nicer car, a bigger house, more expensive vacations. The cycle doesn't actually break. It just gets faster, and the stakes get a whole lot higher. So, if more money isn't the real answer, then what is? How do you actually get out of the race? Well, Rich Dad taught one simple, incredibly powerful rule that really changes everything. This is the fundamental shift in thinking. Most people's financial plan, if they have one, is just to work harder and longer. But the rich, they understand there's a limit to how hard any one person can work. The real goal is to build or buy systems that generate money for you even when you're sleeping. And that whole idea starts with understanding one very simple, very powerful definition. Forget all the complicated accounting jargon you've ever heard. An asset is simply anything that puts money in your pocket. That's it, period. So a liability, you probably guessed it, is anything that takes money out of your pocket. It's that simple. It's not about what something is worth on paper. It's all about which way the cash is flowing. Is it flowing to you or away from you? This was it. This was Rich Dad's only rule for building wealth. The path to real financial freedom is just a lifelong focus on acquiring assets, things that generate income for you, while doing everything you can to minimize liabilities, the things that create expenses. Okay, so how does this one simple rule actually play out in the real world? Well, it creates three very, very different patterns of cash flow for the poor, the middle class, and of course, the rich. Let's break it down. For the poor, money comes in and it goes right back out to cover expenses. For the middle class, they take their income and what do they buy? Liabilities that they think are assets, like their house, a car loan, credit card debt. But the rich, they do something totally different. They use their income to buy true assets, things like businesses, income-producing real estate, stocks that generate even more income. And this creates this amazing, powerful, virtuous cycle. The income that flows from their assets pays for their entire lifestyle, and whatever is left over, the surplus, gets reinvested to buy even more assets. Their money is literally working hard to make more money, which causes their wealth to just grow, almost automatically. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all, and this one is for you to answer. I want you to look at your own financial life. Look at your house, your car, all your possessions, and ask yourself the only question that really matters. Does this put money in my pocket, or does it take money out? According to Rich Dad, answering that question honestly is the first real step toward true financial freedom.